Well, good afternoon, everyone. We're going to kind of make this up as we go here. I understand this was for direct to film. I'm definitely your guy to talk to you about that. So we'll kind of make it an open panel. I think maybe one of the things we can do is we can talk about the history, how I got into direct to film, why I'm so passionate about digital, and some of the things we actually just did a presentation earlier today. It was about what to look for in a digital vendor. So we can hit on some of those topics as well. My background, Central Illinois, small farm town. Went to an engineering school, worked at Caterpillar for about a decade, engineering. And along the way, I was always entrepreneurial in spirit. So I said, hey, always kind of thinking outside the box. In 2014, I got involved with a college roommate, and we said, we saw some things online that they were posting funny designs. And somebody said, hey, I want to buy these. Where can I get these from? Like, little light bulb went off. Let's throw a website up on Shopify and see what we can do with it. And I think within 24 hours, we had about $40,000 in sales, which actually set the record at the time, according to Shopify back then, that the most sales in the trial period. And we didn't even know how we were going to make the shirts. We're like, boy, I guess we got to figure this out. We got to figure it out quick. And that ended up leading us into a technology called dye sublimation, which is a digital print technology. I don't know, is anybody familiar with dye sub at all or played around with it?
I am.
Sean is. Are you coming to back me up here? Or
yeah.
Is it just going to be me?
What is this, improv?
Improv.
Oh, right. I didn't sign up for an improv plan.
Awesome. So what I'm wearing right now, this is a dye sublimation produced product. And so back then we were just doing all over print shirt. So it's a CMYK ink set on that. There is no white with dye sublimation. And since we're kind of making this up, I'll kind of drift on different topics. We might as well talk about dye sub a little bit on how that gets into DTF. But dye sublimation ink, basically what you're doing is you're printing a cyan, magenta, yellow, and black. You're printing it to a paper that absorbs the ink. The whole point of that is to absorb as much ink as possible, and then we're going to transfer it to a substrate. So if we remember chemistry in high school, sublimation is a chemistry term, and basically what we're doing is we're going from a solid to a gas, and we're bypassing the liquid phase. So we take that sublimation paper, apply about 400 degrees for anywhere from 35 seconds to a minute, and that's going to create the gas. So what ends up happening then is just like the pores in your face, when you apply heat to it, they open up. So the pores on the polyester fabric open up and accept that ink. And so now we're going to retain that at the molecular level in the fabric. So it's permanently bonded to it. I don't think you're on. He's got a loud voice though.
It's a poly-specific technology. So 50-50, try dye sublimate at 50-50, you're going to get about 50% color retention. That makes sense? So you get kind of a vintage washed out look if you're not using 100% poly. So it's 100% polyester for 100% color retention when we're talking dye sublimation.
Yeah, so cotton is a hairy fiber, so it doesn't actually accept the ink. The fibers don't open up. So if it was a 50-50 blend, like Sean was saying, you'd get a 50% fade on it. So that is one of the barriers with dye sub technology. And this is all pertinent into DTF because it kind of explains my progression and why I fell in love with DTF. I love dye sub, but there is a lot of barriers with it. Now we're talking equipment as well. So not only do I have to have a dye sub printer to do something like a cut and sew, where we're actually doing a roll-to-roll print. We're pulling the roll off, putting it on a calendar heat press, oil-filled drum, anywhere from 35 seconds to 60 seconds, and it's dyeing the raw fabric. So it's a big, heavy, expensive piece of equipment. Our polyester rolls go through. When they come out on the backside, they're now officially dye subbed. And then we take that dye sub and we cut it out with a cutting solution, or we hand cut it. In the instance of something like this is a sewn piece. So when we say dye sublimation cut and sew, that actually means we are physically sewing the product as well. So like these shirts here were 100% made in the USA. We dye subbed on the printer, calendar heat pressed, cut it out, and then we have a team of seamstresses that sew that up and put it together. So
I'm not allowed in the sewing room.
Yeah, he is permanently banned for obvious reasons. Again, a lot of barriers there, right? That's a lot of labor. So it's a multi-step process, and then it's sewing. So, getting back to the origin story, we were just doing lay flat blanks, dye sublimation. So unlike the cut and sew piece, we were just printing on the front, printing on the back, shipping it out the door. one day I woke up and said, wow, I'm going to take the crazy pill and I'm going to go buy a bunch of expensive sewing equipment that I know nothing about and figure it out. And I found some people that were, crazy enough to kind of come along for the ride. And we learned, we cut our teeth on the real hard path, single stitch, cover stitch. All these are things I had no knowledge of, but we kind of figured it out and struggled through it. So love making that product, but it's a very labor-intensive, costly product to make, and it's difficult. It's very technical. So while I'm doing this in tandem, I'm looking at all these other digital print processes. So this was back, 2017. DTF hadn't made the rounds yet. I was looking at a thing called direct-to-garment. I love the digital piece of it, but you're limited to the substrates you can go on. So with direct-to-garment, you're limited to a cotton-based product, and you have to pre-treat. These are things I didn't like. I didn't like the pre-treat process. It's clear. If my pre-treat has a nozzle issue and it gunks up, I don't know that the pre-treat even went on the garment. I go ahead and print it. Then I send that shirt to someone, and all of a sudden I got a 500-piece order that washed off in one wash. That's a big oopsie. So I could never really take the plunge on the DTG. Not that it's a bad tool, it just didn't fit my business portfolio. So we continued to forge on with the dye sublimation, and then in 2019, 2020, I started seeing DTF make the rounds. Instantly decided, hey, this is kind of a bridge of both worlds. I've got a screen print type solution where I can go on cottons, polyesters, tri-blends, you name it, canvas material, wood, all these different things. But it's a digital print process without all the setup that I have with the dye sub. So I was super intrigued, and that kind of led me.
Last name Super too.
Yeah. So I'll slide those in there throughout the meeting there. But I really wanted to kind of get my feet wet on that, so I jumped in head first. I bought a couple different solutions, and I included a vendor that I work with here in the United States. Kind of sold me on the DTF thing. Unfortunately, it was a really bad experience. And that's was our whole thesis of the last seminar we gave earlier this morning, was what to look for in a digital vendor. And I didn't ask the right questions. I kind of was sold hook, line, and sinker on some of the sales points, but didn't really ask the deep questions like, hey, what does service and maintenance look like? What are some basic things like environment? These are all things that were not communicated to me. So I had a really bad experience, especially when the technician, air quotes technician, showed up and didn't even have a screwdriver. So maybe the first question you should ask your vendor is, does your technician show up with a screwdriver when they go to do the install? So it was a really horrible experience, but that kind of, again, entrepreneurial spirit, I said, hey, what does this market look like? And I really feel like this is going to change the landscape. So kind of fortunately enough, coming to events like this at Printing United, bumping into the right people, I had connections and interacted with guys like Sean, who's been in the industry for 20 years, selling all sorts of digital printing equipment. And Sean, why don't you go ahead and give your resume here?
I mean, I've been selling the digital processes for almost 25 years. And same as Rob, when DTF came out, it was like, holy cow, something that's really going to bridge the gap between screen printing, pushing ink through a screen, and the digital process. And I have sold everything except, like Rob, I was not big into the direct-to-garment thing, just because of viscosities of ink. And in the beginning, it was the Wild West. Take Epsi and 4800 ram white ink through it, call it good. This is never going to be a viable solution to make it. Customers are not going to be happy, and I prefer high-fiving for years to come, not just going, hey, I got a sale at a show. So the digital process has always been where I've cut my teeth, and Rob, being as wily coyote as he is, going, let's get there, let's figure this out. It's been a lot of fun to really kind of try and push the envelope and see the different things. When he's talking about cutting the laser and stuff, I believe that's probably part of, or maybe the direct catalyst to what we're standing next to, because always pushing the envelope in the DTF realm. Now, how do we where's the next bottleneck that we're going to create? Now I've got a really, really fast printer. Now I got a dryer that can handle it. What's the next thing? How about the guy getting carpal tunnel that's cutting it? Or how about the slow rotary that they're using to cut it out? All right, so now we got a laser. I wouldn't have understood how to do that, but I go, hey, that'd be a great idea. And then you got nerd brain over here that goes, I know lasers, let's get this figured out. So it's been a lot of fun to watch, and I think DTF is still evolving. The expanded gamut stuff, the laser, all of these innovations, a lot of fun to see. So very exciting.
Yeah, so, the team we put together was with guys like Sean, and we wanted to build a service that's a white glove solution. It's not just selling you a printer or a box. It's selling you a comprehensive solution and partnership, because we want you to be successful as a small business. We got to take care of each other and band together. And that's our core ethos, right? Is taking care of each other. So that, if anything you walk away from this on a vendor side of things, look for that in a vendor, right? You got to have somebody that you can talk to, because at the end of the day, it's a mechanical piece of equipment. You need to be able to pick up the phone and you need to be able to communicate effectively with them. Some of the stuff we saw in the earlier days is if you didn't develop that bond and partnership with your customer, if they do have a problem, sometimes they aren't forthcoming with the information, and maybe they feel like they're going to get in trouble, or you're not going to help them. If you're like, yeah, I did have an oopsie, I accidentally had a head strike. So developing that communication channel with the appropriate vendor is extremely important in the direct-to-film space, especially when you talk about all the different options out there. And, it's like the Wild West at times, and it's hard to wade through that information. So hopefully as we, kind of go through this, we can answer some of these questions. We'll open up the floor and stuff like that. I think maybe a good segue would be to talk about what is DTF, how does it work? Rick, can I get a raise of hands?
I don't know. Is that what was supposed to be going on here?
It was direct to film.
Oh,
it was direct to film. At least I was told that. How many in here are currently doing direct to film? Okay, so quite a bit of hands. All right.
How many are printing in-house?
Okay.
Very good.
All right. Excellent. Let's talk about how the direct to film process works at a high level. Then we'll kind of get into some nitty gritty. Just like a dye sublimation printer, it's printing to a substrate. In this instance, it's a PET. So you can look at some of the options. We have 2 print head, 4 print head, 6 print head, all the way up to one of our solutions now, it's 8 print head. And these generally correlate to speed. In the instance of some of the higher print head counts, now we're adding expanded again. And so the way it works is a typical printer would have cyan, magenta, yellow, and black. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to put down our color. And then everywhere you put down a color, you have a thing called a white underbase. So the white underbase does 2 things. One, it's going to give us a bonding agent with our powder, and that's going to create the adhesive when we go through the cure tunnel. But 2, it's going to give us a really good opacity. And so by opacity means if I print onto a black or a green shirt, I don't want that to show through on the design. So if I'm using a poor quality white ink, I'm going to get bleed through. I'm sure you've all seen bad DTF and are like, why is the color changing when I'm pressing it? Well, it doesn't have a good opacity. And then you can get in the nuance of a white ink. At the end of the day, there is no white pigment. It's titanium dioxide. That's what gives it its white. And they're not all created equal. So a good quality white ink is not only going to not settle as fast as other inks, it's going to prevent you from clogging print heads and give you that opacity you need. So the other things you should be asking on the consumable side is it OKOTEX certified? If I want to sell to the big boys, customer facing, then I need to have that OKOTEX certification that I can show them, hey, here's my lead testing, here's my OKOTEX certification. It is safe all the way down to child, consumer, skin friendly. So these are things you should be looking at on the consumable side of things as well. Any questions on on that so far?
Yeah, just since we were talking about dye sublimation, when we're talking about white inks, when we're talking about DTFing onto polyesters and things of that nature, dye migration is something that you have seen, I'm sure. If you're pressing on a red poly with a white number, that white number turning pink. So if you have a really good opaque white, if you have a film that can release at a low temperature, like our film is down around 270 degrees. So there are things that you can do. It's not always one thing, but it's one thing or the other. We know what those things are, know what to look for, and we can help you guys out if you're running into any of those issues. I'm not trying to take us on a crazy tangent, but obviously happy to answer any questions you guys have about those types of things that people are running into and going, what's going on here? Why is this turning red? Well, you got red behind it, and if you're using 320 degrees, it's literally dye sublimating. Those dyes, polyester shirts are not all created equal either. He loves to say it's not all created equal. Well, if I got a real cheap poly shirt, I love it. It's so cheap. It was probably cheaply dyed. I mean, how is it so cheap? Maybe the dye that they're using is, some strawberry jam. You put it heat press, it's going to come up and you're going to have problems with it. So there's all kinds of variables. We've kind of banged our heads into the wall on all these different things. And if you guys are having any issues with that stuff, talk to us, ask questions. We'd love to share it with anyone. So.
Yeah, so back to the printing process. So as we put our white underbase down, and there's, whoa, yeah, it's probably Sean. We'll definitely blame that on Sean. So we have our white underbase, and there's a thing called a choke, right? And you'll hear that the terminology quite a bit. So a choke would be how much in from my edge of my color graphic do I want to choke my white in, right? And so if I have a poorly registered printer, meaning I'm putting down, let's just say 2 print heads, and I have 1 print head that's color, 1 print head that's white, I have to apply that white underbase as the film's moving forward. So if my registration between those 2 print heads, meaning the X and the Y, are out of sync, I'm going to get bad registration. So this is something that choke can help with. It's kind of a quick and dirty. I can choke it in more, but you should be properly registering your printer, meaning I could run a 0 choke and I don't have any what I call poke out. I'm sure you've all heard different terminology on something like that, where you get a little bit of white poking through on the color graphic. That's usually because of poor alignment. Or, poor quality. Again, back to the, don't want to beat a dead horse here, but back to a poor quality white ink, it tends to pool, or bad quality film, it doesn't hold the ink and it tends to pool out, and that's where you see some of the registration issues on there. So once we do that, we go into the thing called the powder chamber. And so the powder chamber is going to sprinkle the powder on there. Again, it's going to bond with the white ink, and then we're going to have a powder clear bar, and that's going to gently kiss the film, clears all the excess powder off. If anybody's ever got a transfer it's got a bunch of like snowflakes on it outside of the printed area, that's because they didn't do a powder clear, or they didn't do it correctly, and all that powder stuck to the film before it went through the oven. So then when it goes through the oven, it's going to go on there like glue, essentially. And then when you press it onto a black shirt, it's going to look all speckled and crazy, and you're like, what is this? Well, that's because the powder didn't get cleared off the film. So out of the powder chamber, it goes into the oven. One key thing to look for is an appropriately sized oven to match the printer output. So, ideally you want to go, I want a small footprint as possible. Well, if I have a printer that's printing 200 square foot an hour and I have a 12-inch oven on it, well, I can tell you it's not going to cure properly. We want to do low and slow like barbecue. So we're going to feed it through gently, and we want a nice set temperature. So if I see an oven that I can't walk away from, I hit pause, go take a 15-minute break and come back, that film's all scorched and bubbly, that means I'm having to go at a way too high of a temperature, and it's going to change the color of the color gamut output. It's going to bubble the film, all these sorts of negative consequences. So longer is better in the instance of DTF. So we want to appropriately match oven to match the speed of the printer. We see a lot of the trends trying to shrink the footprint, do all these other crazy things. Simply just doesn't work, and it's going to produce a poorer quality transfer. We want a longer oven so we can have an even, consistent temperature throughout the oven. Once it comes off the backside, there's generally cooling fans on it, so it cools the film off. Sometimes if you're using a take-up reel and it goes on there too hot, it can be bubbly, or you can have other effects like the film actually falling off the transfer and stuff like that before you press it. So outside of the machine, we're going to take our roll of film over, to the next frontier, which we believe is the often overlooked frontier, which is cutting. So if I have a printer that's printing 600 square foot an hour, I need to have a cutting solution that's matched to that. So that's an often overlooked thing. The pair of scissors is great for small quantities and, low production runs. But when you're talking 600 square feet an hour, that's 600 transfers, assuming a 1 by 1 or 12 inches by 12 inches. I need to have a cutting solution. So that's something that we've been really heavily focused on as the next frontier is cutting. And if anyone wants to check it out, not to be a sales pitch here, but you can walk over here and see what we believe is the defining cutting solution in the direct-to-film space at the moment. It's a vision-based dual cutting head solution, so DXF file that you overlay. If I swap rolls out in the middle of the run, I don't care. I don't have to worry about the DXF file getting messed up and redo everything. So it's all vision-based over there. So once we have a cut transfer, then we go to our pressing solution. And so in the old days, most of the film was cold peel. And that's just because the inconsistencies in the hot peel coating, it wouldn't release the edges. Because all that PET film is doing, it's providing a carrier mechanism. It's just a transfer sheet. It's not really doing anything other than providing you the method of putting it on the substrate in a heat press. So back in the day with the hot peel, what you would see is, hey, the edges were catching or peeling up. And then guess what? My transfers ruined and ruined a blank too. So, 2021, 2022, cold peel was the standard, but that meant I had to take that shirt or hoodie or whatever you're doing, throw it off to the side, let it cool. Some people had cooling stones, they'd rub on it, put it on a marble table. That's just simply where the market was at the time because the hot peel wasn't consistent. Now what we're seeing is hot peel and even instant hot peel, meaning as soon as that oven pops up, I'm gonna tear that transfer right off of there and it's gonna release. I'm not gonna get any edge deflection or anything sticking on it. So those are definitely something to look for when you're looking at DTF. What temperature is the melting point? Do I have to run it at 325 degrees? Then I'm going to get things like Sean was talking about, dye migration. If I have to cook it at that temperature, is it's 12 to 13 seconds. What we're seeing right now is a 5 to 7 second press at 275 with a medium high pressure. So if I go 0 to 10 on my gauge, I would want to be at an 8 on that. Every press is a little different, but we see a medium high pressure, 275 to 5 to 7 seconds. That's what you should be going for because that is available and out there. That's something we currently offer. We feel like that's the sweet spot right now from a production workflow. As far as press options, there's a lot of different, presses. I generally try to advise customers, even if you're going for a light duty industrial, look at the air operated. You can imagine having an operator doing a clamshell, 200 to 600 times a day, carpal tunnel, fatigue, things like that. It's not fun, right? So air is going to be more consistent and it's a better quality of life for the operator as well. I think that covers a pretty good spectrum on the kind of the printing process.
You want to talk about film and profiling a little bit?
Yeah, and I was thinking
in the pudding, right?
Software.
And this isn't a sales pitch by any means. I don't know, some of you guys, you have whatever equipment, whatever ink, whatever film, that's fine. Reality of the situation is if you haven't built a profile and figured out what the limits are, what the coating will accept on the film, if you're not doing all that in your environment, you're not doing yourself any real service. If you take and get a spectrophotometer, figure out where to limit it properly, and write a profile for the film in the environment, you're actually setting yourself up for the best success.
Sean, why don't you describe what a spectrophotometer is, or I like to call it a dorkometer?
The spectrophotometer is the technology, the tool that reads the colors. It's the technology. If we're using Kentucky windage, we're printing color charts, going pick your color, going back into the software, using our eyedropper, going that's a CMYK value. That's Kentucky windage. Spectrophotometer is actually going to read those colors, truly give you what you're looking for, lab values, hex values, RGB, CMYK, all of that. So using a spectrophotometer, you're reading what the actual printer is capable of putting out with the ink onto the film, considering the coating, the whole 9 yards. So you set your limits. That's doing a true profiling and setting up for your recipe. We've done that, and we have a nice baseline for our recipe. Everybody should do that for your own recipe. You'll be doing yourself a true service. So go get a spectrophotometer. It's spelled out spectrophotometer.
Nicely done, Sean. Yeah, and some of the other things to consider too is we get this question a lot. Well, do I have to change powders for the different substrates? The answer is no. If you have a good quality powder, it's going to be able to handle all different walks of substrates. And, we definitely have some customers too that say, hey, what about this black powder I see out there? The point of the powder is not to provide opacity. So anyone that tries to steer you down the black powder route doesn't understand how the technology works. The powder cures clear. The opacity comes from the white ink, like we were talking about earlier. So all these specialty powders and things like that, definitely there's really no merit to that. What you would need to look for is the granular size and what it's made of. So for me, it's something my operators and my customers are interacting with on a daily basis. I want to know exactly what's in that powder. So our powder, again, is OKO-Tech certified, and I highly encourage you to look for powders that have that certification as well. I recommend a blend.
But not just anyone. Anyone can say OKO-Tech certified. They could be certified for a leather jacket that sits on top of a flannel on top of an undershirt, and that's as far as they were able to get. You want to make sure it's certified on the baby onesie level. That's kind of the benchmark and the marquee where you want to be.
Correct. Yep. Yeah, and so, on top of that, we can look at things like, what is it made out of? Is it a TPU powder? Is it polyester? I generally tend to think that the TPU powder is superior in multiple ways. We've seen blends of TPU and polyester that have some merit to it. Right now, I think TPU straight is the way to go. And then we look at the next thing we look at is a micron size. So you could do ultra fine, which I would define as anything under 80 microns. The problem with these powders is they're very easy to aerate. So I basically just look at it and next thing I know, it's up in the air. So if you've ever been in a print shop that's just looks like a bakery, it's got powder caked on everything, it's probably because they're using a really, really fine powder. Now, it does have a little bit softer hand feel, but the trade-off is the washability and also just getting everywhere and contaminating your environment. So I think that 80 is the low point is a good sweet spot on that. So 80-200 kind of gives you both the fine and the medium course. Best of both worlds, stretchability, washability, and more importantly, just all-day performance.
And as far as hand goes, I mean, we're catering to the technology just like it was 20 years ago where we're print, cut, weed, mask, apply. What a pain that was, but we weeded a lot because less is more. That's the transfer process. We want to put down as much as we need to get the desired effect and no more. So knocking out the color of the shirt, half toning, things like this, cater to the technology and your customers will be very happy with where it sits today. And it's always going to be advancing and getting better. Talk to me in a year. But right now, the solution that's available is a good one if you take and use all the tools provided to you.
Yeah, that's one common thing. I interact with a lot of diehard screen printers. Hey, I got 10, 18 head automatics. I just can't get over the hand feel. My customers won't like it. I'm like, well, sure, there's some element of that. If I print a 14-inch by 12-inch graphic that's solid, photorealistic, it's going to have a little bit of hand feel. That's a lot of ink. But if you did the same thing with screen print, it's going to have a hand feel to it too. You guys just figured out 20, 30 years ago how to cater to the technology and make the artwork work for it. Same with the digital print process. Don't just think you could throw everything at it and then expect exact results. It's catering to the technology. What I like to use is a negative space. So as Sean was saying, I have a black t-shirt. I have a lot of heavy blacks in my design. Let's go ahead and remove those blacks from that design and allow the shirt to breathe through. It's going to give some breathability, and that's going to do wonders just right there. Not even talking about half toning and stuff like that. Is everyone familiar with what half toning is? Okay, I'm getting a lot of nods. One no. So, trying to think how the best way to break this down. There's multiple ways you can do it. You can do it on the artwork side of things. So before I even put my artwork into the RIP software, which I guess is a point we should, what did that die again? Oh, I guess he's done talking. So I can do it on the artwork side of things. Like basically halftone prior to going into the RIP software, meaning I'd take it into like a Photoshop or Corel Draw, use a tool. Okay, he's going to be my Vanna White here, walk around and show the transfer. This is a great example of half-toning. So basically solid colors I'm breaking up into smaller pixels, again, giving it more breathability without losing the integrity of the design. So I could do that prior to going into the RIP software, or I can do it in some of the RIP softwares out there. For instance, Digital Factory, you have different settings. The other things you can look at is transparency. So meaning, is that pixel 100% solid, or is it transparency? So think about a neon glow. How is my RIP software going to negate that? Am I going to try to print those transparent pixels? Or did I say 0? Basically, I'm not going to print anything that's less than 100% solid. I personally like to set it up where I make it halftone. So the RIP software will read that and then halftone that gradient out. So you have a nice soft, transparent instead of just completely avoiding it. So that way I pick up the detail without making it a weird, awkward, misty effect on the shirt or the substrate. I guess Sean's still doing his Vanna White here. So yeah. No, you're good. Any questions on any of that so far? I don't want to just keep rambling without giving you guys the opportunity to ask a couple questions here. Pretty straightforward. Any in-depth questions we want to talk while we're on the RIP part of the piece here? So raster image processing is what RIP stands for. A lot of good solutions out there. We primarily use a fiery product called Digital Factory. We also have InEdit, NeoStampa. Both have pros and cons to them. We've been using Digital Factory since the beginning, so it's something I gravitate towards. It's got a really good workflow on it. A lot of different bells and whistles, so very user-friendly, but then also you can go down a lot of rabbit holes, a lot of bells and whistles. again, catering to the technology, dialing things in, what makes sense for your business model. Okay, so now outside of the rip, let's see what else we can talk about here. I think an important thing to really look at is not just speed, but also color accuracy. And that's one of the things we really pride ourselves on. So a couple of years ago, just looking at the market, hey, where's the market going?
Say Bob Ross.
Yeah, this is the Bob Ross moment here, and you'll see why in a second here. So he's very proud of this. Along with talking about if you get hit by lightning, I've heard that at least 16 times today. So maybe we'll give him an opportunity to bring that story into the fold here. But with the expanded gamut, one of the things I was looking at is the chemistry of the DTF ink with CMYK isn't as robust as something like this jersey I'm wearing here. This is just a cyan, magenta, yellow, black printer only. But because it's an aqueous-based ink in the chemistry of the dye sublimation ink, I get a lot bigger gamut. And gamut's basically just the number of colors you can hit. So I was always a little disappointed with where I could get with CMYK. Not that it's bad. I just wanted a little bit more. And so 2 years ago, we kind of went down the path of let's throw more colors at the printer instead of just focusing on speed. Let's look at giving a bigger paintbrush and palette to play with. So now we have red.
I mean, you can imagine, Bob Ross, how happy are those trees when you give them red, green, blue, and orange on top of a CMYK? He's a very happy man, right?
Yeah. 8 colors versus 4. Those are going to be very happy trees and clouds. Absolutely. So we introduced the red, green, blue, and orange, and we did a lot of experimenting with it. And again, I'm just giving Sean too many layups here, but proof's in the pudding. I've heard that at least 20 times today as well. I think you already said it earlier, actually. So yeah, you guys heard it at least twice now. But proof's in the pudding, meaning we went from 300,000 gamut on a good CMYK printer to now we're pushing over 500,000. And so that's a pretty substantial jump. And when you're talking corporate colors, hey, I want to hit Marlboro Red, I'm going to have a lot better success doing that with the additional expanded gamut than I would with CMYK printer. Now, that's not to say that there's anything wrong with the CMYK printer or it's not applicable still to this day. You can still get really good quality, consistent transfers. But having that additional extra 4 colors really helps propel the market and your color accuracy and ability to hit colors with the customer that you need to.
Do you want me to say spectrophotometer again?
Yeah, dorkometer.
So when you add RGBO or RGB or whatever you're adding to expand that gamut, your gamut is going from
yeah.
So when you take and you're printing something that the color is outside of the color gamut that you actually have or have been provided, because we talked about it, we're not building our profiles in-house just yet. That's all on the horizon. But if we're taking something someone provided to us and we're printing it, and we're seeing banding, but we're getting a perfect nozzle check. Why is this happening? You're trying to print a color that's outside of the color gamut that you have provided. When you add CMYK to RGBO, now we've got a big gamut. That's when that word spectrophotometer comes into play. Coca-Cola, PepsiCo, they've got Mountain Dew's got a fluorescent green, a second green, and a red. I need to hit these colors because I want their money. They got a big wallet. How do I make sure I'm going to get that business? I do a 1-to-1 spot color replacement. How do I get a 1-to-1 spot color replacement? If I don't have the physical color in my ICC gamut, I'm not going to hit that color. But with the spectrophotometer, I can put it on the color chip, and the RIP software will literally go, okay, it's right here, and it'll give you that color. So when you get to a place like that, if you do not have those tools, just remember my name. Call me up. I'll go ahead and I'll knock out the sample for you, and I'll sell you the printer that made it happen. It's not a sales pitch. I apologize.
Can't take it out of them. Yeah, so on some of the topics on that as well. When we're looking at the RIP software, we're doing a thing called process color. So it's actually truly processing these extra channels of color. So if you talk about things called spot channel, basically I would have to set up a spot channel in my RIP software and define, hey, this color value should equal this output. It's a very difficult thing to manage, especially if you're taking customer artwork from all these different signals. There's no way I can harness that and say, hey, customer, you need to use this color to get this value. It's a very difficult thing to manage. So when you're looking at RIP software and solutions, you want to make sure it's a true process color, meaning that RIP software is processing that color in those channels correctly. And I'm not doing some weird, patch job to say, hey, this is a spot channel. This color is going to equal this output. Anything regarding RIP or anything we want to delve into? No question is off the table. Hit us with some fastballs. All right, yes. Sean, why don't you run this mic down there so we can get a... That is powered off currently, by the way.
What about the smoke when you put the film through the oven? The smoke.
The smoke. Okay. Yeah. That's a great question. Thank you. So that is a byproduct, right? We're heating up a couple different components, not only the PET, but the powder and the ink. So there is a byproduct. There is some smoke that's off-putting, right? And there's a few different ways you can handle that. So one, you can have a built-in fume extractor. So within the duster itself, duster, shaker, oven, whatever you want to call it, you can have built-in purification. We want to separate the moisture part of it, the glycol, from the filters. So looking at a duster, make sure it has a glycol trap. So it's separating that. Otherwise, those filters are going to gunk up real quick. And basically, the performance of the filter is only going to last a couple days if you're running that machine hard. So we separate the moisture from the air, and then we run it through a 3-stage filter. Typically, it's a pre-filter, and that's going to catch any remaining residuals. Then we're going to go through a HEPA filter, and then we're going to go through activated carbon charcoal. And that's truly what's scrubbing the air. So good quality dusters sometimes has those built in. You can do standby dusters. It's basically a box that stands next to it. Some of the old school dusters, they have just a vent on the side or at the bottom that you plug into, and it's gently vacuuming it. So one of the things you need to look out for on that front, if I'm pulling too much CFM out of that oven and you're beating your head against the wall, you're like, man, why is the temperature on the oven fluctuating so much? Well, you probably put a really high CFM fan on that and you're exhausting too much air out of that. So it's pulling cold air in. And it's just like basically like your smoker. It has a thing called a thermocouple, and it's just reading the temperature inside the oven. So if I'm constantly doing air turnovers inside the oven by pulling too much CFM out, it's going to change the temperature, and the oven's going to go, oh, I got to heat up. And so you're just going to gradually keep overheating, undercuring. So that's something you got to be cognizant of. Is if you use a standalone unit, make sure it's not pulling a lot of air out of the oven. Otherwise, you're going to have a problem with that fluctuating all over the place. The other option is just to vent it out of your building. Obviously, in your confined spaces, you don't want to have that smoke coming out there. Or you're in the middle of a big factory. Sometimes it's hard to get it up and out. That's when I would use fume extraction. But a great option is always to get it out of the building and vent it out into the open, exposed air.
Yeah, and one thing we didn't really talk about, we were talking about profiling and writing profiles, and he said proof is in the pudding. I didn't, he did. But since proof is in the pudding, you're going to take and you're going to print these color charts, and then you're going to have to read these color charts. And to read these color charts and get accurate color, you have to cure these transfers. So anybody that's taking and writing a profile and not actually running it through a dryer and not actually transferring it, you're not actually doing what's going to give you the color at the end of the day. So with proof being in the pudding, when you're writing profiles, you print it out, you press it to the said substrate that you will be transferring to, you read the color off of there, then you will have true color accuracy. So you have to go all the way when you're building a profile. We don't just print and go, all right, here's the color and read it. We're going to heat it a couple of times, right? It's going to be coming off the printer. It's going to go through a dryer. It's going to cure there. It's going to come. Then we're going to put it in a heat press. We're going to press it there. I don't care what ink company you're talking to that's going to tell you there is absolutely zero color shift due to heat on this ink. Okay, great. Well, but proof's in the pudding. So I'm going to go ahead and do it that way just in case you're off. And you'll find that by taking and actually getting to the finished substrate that you're putting this on, just like you're familiar with dye sublimation. If we're going on a mug, or if we're going on a fabric, these things need to be profiled separately. So when we're building custom profiles for DTF, we want to be transferring and go as far as transferring to the shirt. It's wasting a shirt. What's the big deal? Get a black shirt, get a white shirt, get a gray shirt. If you got Mountain Dew and they got a green, ugly green shirt, you got to put something on. Put it on that shirt and actually read the colors from there. Because again, one more time, proof's in the pudding. We want to make sure we're to that point.
Yeah, I think a good segue is in talking about environment. So that's when you're looking at solutions and vendors, make sure that they're bringing up the environment or ask them about the environment. If they tell you, this in my experience, when I was telling you about my horror story back in the day, I was told I could just stick it anywhere, and I have a big box warehouse. Oh yeah, just go out in the open air environment. Doesn't matter. 100% not the case. The viscosity of the ink and the chemistry makeup, it likes humidity. So we generally recommend a minimum of 55% humidity to maintain the peak performance of that printer. Anything lower than that, we typically have to slow the print machine down a little bit, or stop to do periodic cleanings, because what ends up happening is that white ink, or even your colors, they get dried out and the nozzle's clogged, and then you're going to have banding and things like that. So with some of the things we do to mitigate that is a really good environment. So we're really strict about this. Like, hey,
that's important on a number of levels. When we're talking about a film that is made to absorb ink, and we have a very, very humid environment, there is a potential that we could be flooding it with a little bit of moisture right out the gate. So if we don't write that profile in our environment, and I provide it to you, and I'm in Illinois and you're in Florida, that's completely different, right? That coating, if you're sitting it out in your shop and I'm sitting it out in mine, that coating may be different. Even though it's the exact same coating, it may be slightly different because now it's got some moisture in it. So I'm just going to keep reiterating the whole in your environment. Do everything where it's going to be, on what it's going to, and you'll see the right results.
Yeah, and I just got the 2-minute warning here, so we'll try to wrap up with some closing thoughts, and I'll open the floor up for any quick questions. Environment is critical. Also, thing to look for in a vendor, make sure they're doing that white glove installation and training. This technology is not a desktop printer that I open it out of the box and stick it there and I hit print. It is not that. You need a competent vendor to work with that's going to teach you the preventative maintenance, what components wear out, what do I need to be looking for, what is an ink damper, what is a capping station, what are the waste ink pumps, how do I manage this, do I have a wet capping solution? These are all things that are super critical to the success and performance of your printer and lifetime of the printer itself. So closing thoughts on this, any questions? Nothing's off the table here. Any thoughts? Anyone have any goals they're trying to achieve this year at the show? Anything they want to see? What's the buzzwords going around nowadays? Yeah. Also, is your vendor providing solutions to you? So something we like to provide is a free gang sheet builder that we give to our customers. So, hey, we want you to be successful. We built this tool over the last 12 months. We give you a gang sheet builder that's customer facing, and you can use that. And again, it helps your business. You can use it for internal gang sheets, or you can plug it into your Shopify WooCommerce, accept orders, send to local customers, businesses all across the country. Again, great way to use your printer. A lot of our core business customers, they're garment embellishment, but hey, if I can throw, a couple extra rolls in the mail and send them out, or have local customers come pick them up, it's a great way to use the machine in the downtime. So your dollar per square foot on your floor plan just went up. And, one of the things I like to, when I give these types of talks, right now I believe DTF is the multi-tool of the garment embellishment industry, meaning it does the most things and it does them really well. It's not going to replace everything. Screen print's not going anywhere. Embroidery's not going anywhere. Direct to garment has its place. But this is the one tool that I believe very strongly about that is the right investment for pretty much anyone in the garment embellishment industry. Whether you have access to somebody that has you can buy transfers reliably, or you have the equipment yourself, I think it's a tool you need in the toolbox. I think he agreed with me there. All right. Anything else? Cool. Well, we made that up on the fly there, so I think that went well. Thanks for attending.